Now, this book is not exactly just, it's not the teachings of Swami Akhandananda. It's actually the story of his life, which I find exceptionally interesting because this is a man who walked the entire length of India, from the bottom to the very top into the Himalayas, and he is one of the very, very first of Ramakrishna's disciples who took up the service of God in man. He took it up as almost his purpose in life. And it's very fascinating because he followed what Swamiji said completely. You have to, in order to worship God, you worship God in man and do service that way. So there will be a lot, he traveled a lot, so there's a lot of Indian villages that he goes through that we're going to be talking about, which I have no idea where they are, except they're between two places. Okay? And if you all want to get a map, you can figure it out. It doesn't really matter. It's not, it matters that he did all these things, but it doesn't really, the place itself is not, it's important to the place, but not to our study of his life. So this is basically, I believe, the most complete biography of him. And it was translated from the Bengali and okayed by a multitude of senior swamis. Swami Madhavananda read it over, Nirmoyananda read it over, Sarvagachananda read it over. These were all disciples of Akhandananda. So I'm just going to start on chapter 1, Birth and Boyhood. Okay. Not far from Calcutta, in the secluded temple garden of Dakshineshwar, there lived in the last century an extraordinary man hidden from public view. There, in the midst of the materialism of the 19th century, he lived a life of total renunciation. Oblivious to the outer world, he practiced spiritual disciplines of the great religions of the world, including those of the principal Hindu sects, and he found that they all led to one God. He realized Brahman in everything. At the end of his disciplines, his sadhanas, he felt a tremendous urge to impart to mankind the results of his realizations, especially the grand universal ideas. Unable to control his longing, in the evening hours he would cry out, "Come to me, my children, wherever you are." His soul-stirring call found an echo in one heart after another, and one by one the spiritual heirs of Sri Ramakrishna found their way to Dakshineshwar, to the feet of this great master. One of them was Gangadhar Gangopadhyaya, vowed to the life of an austere brahmachari, celibate religious student, indifferent to the world from childhood. Sri Ramakrishna took him to his bosom at first sight. From his childhood, Gangadhar had a special devotion for the great Lord Shiva. Sri Ramakrishna now showed him the living Shiva, filling his heart with unbroken joy. Akhandananda, that's what his name means, unbroken joy. He was to show a unique capacity to receive the inspiring ideas of Sri Ramakrishna and to translate them into action and service for the good of humanity. Gangadhar was born into a pious family with a rich spiritual heritage, in which the practice of Tantra and Yoga sadhana was a long tradition. And there's a footnote here. Tantra is a system of religious philosophy in which the Divine Mother or power is the ultimate reality. And Yoga sadhana, the method by which one realizes the union or identity of the individual soul and the universal soul. The household deity was Sri Jagadatri. His father, Srimanta Gangopadhyaya, son of Jayachandra, was an orthodox brahmacharin in his youth, who studied Sanskrit till he received the degree of Tarkaratna at the age of 25. Srimanta's mother then desired that her son should settle down to a householder's life, but instead he left home. Perhaps he was not yet prepared for the life of a householder. Excuse me. However, 6 years later, his father brought him back and had him married. Soon after his marriage, Srimanta again left home to continue his spiritual search. This time, his father-in-law, Shambhunath Chakraborty, induced him to remain a householder. Srimanta later went to the holy Kamakaya in pursuit of his goal, only to be brought back this time by his wife. This man is really running from... This is Akhandananda's father. Srimanta then took up the profession of a negotiator of marriages. It was considered at that time an honorable profession among Brahmins to trace the genealogies of respectable families and bring about matrimonial alliances between them. By the year 1864, Srimanta had settled down to leading an ideal Brahmin householder's life in a house near the Ganga in the Aryatola locality of North Calcutta. His wife, Vamashundari, was very beautiful and had already borne 3 daughters, but she longed to have a son. In the month of Ashwin, September-October, of the Bengali year 1271, which is 1865, during the fortnight auspicious for the worship of the forefathers, Srimanta's mother passed away. It was the auspicious day of Mahalaya, the last day of the fortnight. Welcome notes in the air heralded Mother Durga's worship, as Srimanta, with heavy heart, made preparations for the last rites of his mother. His wife, who was soon expecting another child, had to leave for her father's home in Kalighat, while Srimanta made offerings for the welfare of his ancestors. Now, that's a tradition that during Durga Puja, all the daughters go back to their families and visit, because Durga Puja is the celebration of Mother Durga coming down to meet her family. She comes down off Kailash. So, meanwhile, his wife came back with her husband on this very auspicious occasion, for she felt her presence at the performance of the rites would not at all hinder their completion. In the evening after the conclusion of the ceremony, Vamasundari gave birth to a beautiful baby boy. To the couple it was a gift, as it were, from their ancestors. And with the setting of the sun, the blowing of the conch shells announced the good news to their neighbors. A week after the birth of the child came the terrible cyclone of Ashwina. As the family huddled under the roof of the old rented house, the father was filled with anxiety for the safety of his family and the tiny baby. But somehow he felt it augured well for the child. In due time, the boy was named Gangadhar. Being the only son and possessing beautiful physical features, an aquiline nose, a broad brow, long eyelashes, and a light brown skin, he became the natural pet of the family. And very early it was seen that he had a will of his own. His mother once put a gold chain around his neck, but the child lost no time in tearing it off to her dismay. From Aryatola, Srimanta shifted to a house at Bagbazar. Here, Gangadhar found playmates after his own heart. Water pipes were being laid in Calcutta at that time, and Gangadhar, with his playmates, found it an exciting pastime to frighten people in the evenings by howling through the pipes. Once a passerby chased them, and Gangadhar, while running away, fell and got a bleeding wound on the head. This incident was a lesson to him not to give pain to others, even in fun. His exceptional powers of concentration and strength of mind were noticeable even when he was a boy. At the age of 8, he underwent an operation on his eyelid for a boil, but refused anesthesia. He did not flinch from the surgical knife during the operation, much to the surgeon's surprise. For schooling, his father sent him to the Oriental Seminary in North Calcutta. Here, his kind nature would often express itself towards his classmates by gifts of food and clothing, sometimes to the concern of his mother. Gangadhar was a keen student and learned the English alphabet in a single day. But his constitutional aversion for worldly studies did not permit him to make much progress in school. Once, when all the members of the class were absorbed in their studies, Gangadhar suddenly stood up, clapped his hands, and shouted, "Hari, Hari!" Then he sat down. This startled the whole class, but the teacher, after a pause, carried on with his teaching. At this time, interest in dramatics was the vogue in Calcutta, and the famous actor and playwright Girish Chandra Ghosh added fresh enthusiasm. Girish's son, Dhani, Surendra Ghosh, was Gangadhar's friend and neighbor. The two boys became the leaders of a theatrical party in their locality. At nightfall, the boys would gather on the bank of the Ganga and hold their rehearsals. They neglected their studies and played truant. They even built their own stage of paper and wood and began to perform dramas in public. Gangadhar impressed people in the different roles he played. He took the part of Kusha in Sita's exile, Kalapurusha in Lakshmana Varjana, and Shiva in Daksha Yagna. Quarrels would now and then break out in the group of players, and Gangadhar would be asked to mediate. At this time, the moral standards of many Calcutta boys were very unstable. Some took rented rooms in the suburbs out of sight of their guardians and spent nights smoking hemp and other narcotics. There were many who played truant to visit these places. Gangadhar's friends would sometimes drag him to their haunts, but he would stand aside and witness their foolish orgies. The miserable state of his friends aroused in Gangadhar a feeling of pity rather than of hatred and disgust. When he saw them lying unconscious or talking incoherently, at about midnight, knowing their helplessness, he would guide one or two home. Good company, it is said, is elevating, and evil company drags one down. But in Gangadhar's case, his friends' inducements to join them had no effect. As a stone will never absorb water, no matter how long it may remain immersed, similarly, a lover of God will never be spoiled by evil company. As a pastime, Gangadhar would visit alone or with friends any sadhu who happened to come to his neighborhood. He enjoyed hearing readings from the sacred books, and he felt a longing to live in the ashramas, hermitage, and holy places about which he heard. When he listened to sadhus recounting their pilgrimage to Kashi, Prayag, Vrindavan, Hardwar, the Himalayas, and Kailash, a keen longing to visit those sacred places would arise in him. His father, being an Orthodox Brahmin, arranged the Upanayana ceremony, investment of the sacred thread, for his son at the proper time. The boy became a Dvija, twice born, with the Gayatri initiation, and a radical change came over his life. He began to bathe 4 times a day in the Ganga, to sleep on a blanket on the ground, to live on vegetarian food cooked by himself only, to take haritaki, fruit, after his meal, and to observe other procedures prescribed for brahmacharans. He was, as it were, preparing himself for the austere life that he was to follow afterwards. He practiced pranayama regularly and worshipped Lord Shiva, for whom he had special devotion. When his parents at this time were in search of a suitable bride for Gangadhar, he came to know of it and said to his mother somewhat sarcastically, "Fix up the marriage quickly, for we are too many brothers and sisters for you to look after. We require another mother to help you in serving our food at the right time." A little sarcastic is an understatement. Harinath Chattopadhyaya, his neighbor, was a little older, but the two boys became spiritual companions from early youth. Association with Harinath acted as a strong stimulus to Gangadhar's austere habits. Once, when ill with fever, Gangadhar ate a banana, and his sister reported it to their mother. Gangadhar, fearing a rebuke, left home and was not seen for 3 days, till finally his parents were informed that he was lying at a nearby cremation ground. The boy told his mother, "I was afraid you would scold me, so I lay down in the cremation ground. The fever and fear left me. Now please allow me to go my own way." The words hurt the mother, and the quest for a bride for such a son was given up for the time. His father, who must have remembered his own experience as a youth, left him alone. Attorney Dinanath Basu of Bhojpara was a devotee of Sri Ramakrishna. His younger brother, Kalinath, was a police officer and belonged to Keshav Sen's Brahmo Samaj. One day in 1877, Sri Ramakrishna went with Keshav to Kalinath's place. From there, the elder brother, Dinanath, took the master to his own home. The news spread, and many gathered at the Basu's house, including Gangadhar and Harinath, who stood at a distance, waiting to see the Paramahamsa. At the first sight of Sri Ramakrishna, the two felt drawn to him. The master fell into samadhi when he heard the song, "Dance, Mother Shyama, not with a sword, but now with the flute in your hands." During his samadhi, some individuals who were accustomed to doubt tested him and found his body inert, with no pulse beat and with unwinking eyes. The two boys looked on in wonder. Gangadhar was about 12 years old at this time and appeared, as described in Sri Ramakrishna Punti, like a typical young brahmacharan with unkempt hair and dispassionate gaze. Gangadhar's aversion to worldly life increased after seeing Sri Ramakrishna in samadhi. A few days later, the boy met an Udasi sadhu, a follower of Guru Nanak, in a temple at Kasipur. The sadhu was a lover of solitude. His words impressed Gangadhar, and he accompanied him up to Burdwan. The sadhu was pleased to observe the boy's earnestness at so young an age and told him, "When you grow up, you will be a sadhu." When he failed to return home, his mother's anxiety became unbearable, and she went in search of him. She visited Kashi, Prayag, Hardwar, Mathura, and Vrindavan. At Kashi, an auspicious event gave her some consolation. On the advice of her relative, she paid a visit to the great saint, Trailangya Swami, and offered him fruits, sweets, and a piece of cloth, with the idea in her mind that the saint's acceptance of her gifts would indicate that her son had already come back home. To her amazement, the silent sage made a sign to his attendant to take the gifts of food, and he himself accepted the cloth. On her return, she found her lost treasure already there. Her delight was unbounded. To the question, "Did I give birth to you that I might shed bitter tears?" the son's reply was, See how blessed you've been in visiting so many holy places of pilgrimage only because I came to you? He seems to always have a ready answer. Okay, chapter 2, at Sri Ramakrishna's feet. The life of Sri Ramakrishna from 1875 onwards is of great historical significance. It was at this time that he came in close contact with the famous Brahmo preacher, Keshab Chandra Sen, and the other leaders of Bengal. His ideas began to spread among the westernized section of society. By 1884, all those who were to form his intimate band of disciples, and of whose advent he had foreknowledge many years earlier, were gathered at his feet. Gangadhar came in 1883. It was a hot summer day in May that year. Sri Ramakrishna sat alone on the smaller of the 2 cots in his room at Dakshineshwar. The elder Gopal was standing by as an attendant. Gangadhar, a good-looking boy with disheveled hair and of simple appearance, arrived alone at midday and prostrated himself at Sri Ramakrishna's feet. The master affectionately requested him to sit on his cot and inquired, "Did you ever see me before?" "Yes, sir," the boy replied. "I saw you once in Dina Bosa's place when I was very young." The master burst into laughter and called to the elder Gopal, "Look, he says he saw me when he was very young." Gangadhar was barely a youth at this time and still retained a boyish look. Later, in the afternoon at the master's bidding, Gangadhar offered his salutations to the deities of the Kali and Vishnu temples, and then passed some time in meditation in the sacred Panchavati. After Vespers, the boy went back to the master's room. The smoke of the burning incense almost hid the master from view. He was in meditation, oblivious to the outer world. Gangadhar spent the night and the following day at Dakshineshwar in great joy. The next morning, when the boy was taking leave, the master, full of joy, said to him, "Come again on Saturday. Saturday is a sweeter day." Sri Ramakrishna had attracted Gangadhar's inmost being. At his earliest opportunity, on a Saturday, he again visited Dakshineshwar. After the evening arati, the master asked Gangadhar to spread a mat on the semicircular porch adjoining his room, which faced the Ganga. He then brought out a pillow and said as he lay down, just as a baby beside its mother. He instructed him to sit in a comfortable posture and meditate. After a while, the master got up and told him, "Don't lean forward or keep your body too stiff. When the meal is prepared, you may eat it in any way you like, to your satisfaction." There's a footnote there. It's a Bengali parable, meaning once a man is established in the thought of God, his posture, occupation, and other appearances are of little importance. On this day, Sri Ramakrishna initiated Gangadhar by writing the holy mantra on his tongue. Then he lay down and placed his feet on Gangadhar's lap and asked him to massage them. No sooner had the young Gangadhar taken the master's feet and began to massage the master, Sri Ramakrishna cried out, "What are you doing? The skin will come off." Then Gangadhar realized how tender and delicate his body was. The master affectionately showed him how to massage in the right way. Generally, holidays were crowded days at Dakshineshwar, and Gangadhar avoided them, spending only nights there. Even at other times, if there were people in the master's room, he would move about the temples or sit in the Panchavati, then go to the master's room when he was alone. One day, Sri Ramakrishna saw Gangadhar himself in the Ganga after answering the call of nature. Sri Ramakrishna said to him, "What are you doing? Ganga water is as holy as Brahman. Go to the pond. And if there is only Ganga water, then it may be used. And if there's only Ganga water, asked Gangadhar, then it may be used, said the master. Gangadhar spent that night at Dakshineshwar. At daybreak, he visited the Kali and Vishnu temples and the temples of Shiva, and then went to the master's room. In a little while, the master said he could have his bath in the Ganga, and requested Gangadhar to help him. The boy followed the master with a water vessel. The master walked down the steps very gently and stood waist deep in the water. He put a little water on his head, washed his mouth, and caught the water from his mouth in his hands. The master had said on the previous day that Ganga water was as holy as Brahman. As Gangadhar watched, he saw in what veneration the master held the sacred river. After the bath, Gangadhar took him to his room. The master sprinkled a few drops of Ganga water on his cloth before he wore it, made his salutations to the deity, and then partook of the sacred offerings. Outside the master's room was a beggar. The master told Gangadhar to take a few pice from the shelf and give it to him. When he had done so, the master told him to wash his hands with Ganga water. This incident, revealing the master's aversion for handling money, made a lifelong impression on Gangadhar. The master led the boy to a picture of Mother Kali of Kalighat in his room and began to repeat Hari Bol, clapping his hands at the same time. And he asked Gangadhar to do the same. On another Saturday in the summer season, Gangadhar arrived in the morning. After a little rest at noon, he was told by the master to bring some ice. The boy at once set off in the hot sun for Alam Bazaar, quite a long walk. He had scarcely walked for 5 minutes when, to his great surprise, an ice vendor was seen coming towards Dakshineshwar. The master was glad to see Gangadhar return with the ice so soon. I was thinking of going to any place where it could be had, said the boy. But no sooner had I started out than I found it. Surely it was being brought this way just for you. Even from his boyhood, Gangadhar was of the habit of practicing austerities. The master did not discourage him, but enjoined him to repeat the Gayatri mantra instead of too much pranayama. He told Gangadhar, "You are still a boy. Why behave like an old man?" Gangadhar began to reflect on his habits, taking vegetarian food, not using oil for his body, and other practices don't seem to be of much use. It's better to give them up. With such thoughts in his mind, he went to Dakshineshwar. After the midday rest, some householders went to the master's room and said to him, "Sir, all these young boys come to you to become sannyasins. Will it be good for them?" "You see only this present life of theirs," said the master. "You know nothing of their former births. They have finished with worldly life. When spiritual qualities predominate, one develops tendencies toward renunciation and performance of austerities." These words of the master removed Gangadhar's doubts. His faith in vegetarian food and austerities was renewed. And I think we'll stop there, because then we're moving on to Ekadashi. I hope everyone's liking this book. It's very detailed on his early life. Not all the boys were good boys when they were little. Some of them were naughty, like Swamiji, and obviously this one. But just naughty. So, let's see. Saturday is Karma Yoga Day, and we will have the gospel reading at 5 on Saturday. We will also have Swami Mahayogananda, who is going to speak on spiritual practices. So, and Saturday is when your Navaratri chanting starts. Saturday the 14th to Tuesday the 24th. And as I say, let either Vrajaprana or me know if you're signing up for Santa Barbara. And Leanne, it's okay you signed up for Austin. Okay. Any questions about anything we've read so far?
I was wondering, I really liked what Thakur said about you're so young, why are you acting like an old man?
Yeah,
But like, I don't know, it's interesting to think about. It's a cute saying, but there's a lot in there.
there
Like
is.
as young people, are we doing the right things? Like we need to be authentic to ourselves if we're doing austerities. It was in Akhandananda's nature to do that, but I guess it's kind
It
of like
seems
something
it
to chew
was.
on.
It reminds me of what Swami Swahananda said to Swami Aurupeshananda that he told us about in his lecture a couple Sundays ago, when he wanted to go to he was given tickets to a Dodgers game right before his brahmacharya vows. And Swami said, all of it is what leads you to where you're going. So, and it's true.
Part of the purification process. Part of the purification process.
Part of the purification process. Everything that you go through. And when you stop and think about your entire life, those of you that are younger and those of us that are older, every single thing that has happened in our life has put us right where we are today. It doesn't, we may have judgments about it, whether it was good or bad or harmful or terrible, but in the overall picture, every single thing has led us right where we are. We don't see the overall picture most of the time. We see little bits of our lives and make huge judgments. Okay. Now, Durga Puja will be Saturday, the 21st. If you can come in person, that's wonderful. It starts at 11 o'clock. So, I think we'll end with a chant there. Om Shanti 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 Hari Om Tat Sat Sri Ramakrishna Panamastu. Good to see you all. Everyone stay healthy. Stay as cool as you can.